All right, how's it going, everyone? This is Anon. None of this is financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. All right, so it's been, I think, like a week since I streamed. I got a pretty nasty cold. It wasn't COVID. I did take some tests, and it was not COVID. But I was gonna say, ended up finding out that my daughter got it, and then a bunch of us got sick afterwards, and my wife had gotten sick, and yeah. All right, so let me see. My chat is not up though. Testing. Let's see if that works. Oh, you know what? I just realized something. Hold on a second. Let's try. There we go. How's that? Is anyone in the chat yet? Hey yo, what's up, awesomeness? What's up, goat? All right, I can see it there, but it's not coming up on my. Oh, there we go. I can see it now. All right, so we can see this chart. We're on the right thing now. Okay. Sorry, obviously out of practice. So, how's it going, everyone? I was telling everyone in the beginning that I got sick last week. My daughter caught some sort of bug. She's had her first day of school. Yeah, my mouse should be fixed. I don't see any problems so far. Let me just bring this across, make sure I can get to like dilution. Sorry, I was doing my draft, my NFL, fantasy football draft this weekend too. Yeah, I don't see any issues so far, so I think we're good. Yep. Yeah, it seems like the mouse and the keyboard are all fixed. I did change the batteries on that. I was thinking maybe that was the issue. So, I know it's been about a week since I streamed last, so I was trying to make sure everything was good beforehand. Yeah, what's up, CJ? How are you? So my voice will be probably a little bit rougher, just for, because I just coming off of a pretty nasty cold. But yeah, I am back and I feel better now. I got some good rest over the. Well, I shouldn't say great rest. It was more like, uh, somewhat. Awesomeness says, I can't stay, but I'll tap that button. Have a great stream. Catch up tomorrow. Can you cover Spy for me? Yeah, absolutely. We'll go over Spy real quick. All right, so let's take a look. I think we've talked about this important purple line before. We broke over it, back tested, used it as a support, and it's fallen through. Like the heavy volume day came right here, massive sell off, selling volume, and then I think now we covered the gap. I think right, so it looks like it's ready to go down. Just for I think we talked about this before, but there were gaps down here that I thought might actually, a slight gap down here at the 369 level. So, yeah, I'll talk about ATER and other tickers tonight. Yeah. So I have a hardwired mouse because that was the thing that usually went the most when I was like actually needing it. But the keyboard I usually don't have any issues with. But maybe it was just running out of batteries that night, or the receiver was too far away. I don't know. Sup, Shroom? Got any secret psychedelics for the group? What's up? What's up, Green Mushroom? How are you, buddy? Yeah. So, but yeah, for Spy, I do think we're gonna revisit. Remember, I think I map this line out back here, which is where I think there's going to be some, I think there was 2 of them, but I believe it was in the 3, where is the line that I drew out? Is it these gaps here? Yeah, there's some gaps, I think, here-ish in the 340s. And I think we're going to hit that again at some point. I don't know if it'll be this cycle, but it does look like we had that massive sell-off, and then it looks like they covered the gap here. If not, they'll cover it tomorrow probably, and then there'll be room down here, you know. Muffin Man. Yeah, I'm not drinking tonight. I haven't drank anything in like a week. Was not feeling great last week, so all right. But yeah, so I think with the SPY, I'm curious to see what happens tomorrow if we do get breakdown. So obviously the 400 is a major, line of support psychologically. So we'll see what happens there. Still holding those 350 puts? Yep. My only regret is not adding more when it was up here. But I did buy some 440 puts. There was only like 3 of them for January. Just those are really expensive. So I bought 440 puts for January. They were already up like $5,000. So hey, 3 a.m. stream. Is it good in the UK? John said drugs are bad. Okay. Expecting a big September for Aterian. So Shannon, I think what's going to end up happening is this. I think the warrants are eligible, right? And so everyone's been freaked out, and I just want to point out a couple things. Let me show you. So you guys have seen me talk about this. We've had these major divergences, and obviously the ADL and then these ones. So we haven't had massive volume of selling. We've had some slight declines in some of these numbers, obviously, because I think here you had your peak where when everything went up, right? And then since then, there's been like selling and shorting pressure. At the same time, you money flow hasn't really moved that much, right? So there's still like a good amount of money that is just sitting here, right? So most people that own Aterian are not profitable, right? Which is why most people are holding. So what it's boiled down to is retail's holding, and at some point, this is a lot of red candles, right? So you've had a huge amount of red candles. This was earnings, right? So they had the push up, and now we've had this push down, right? So what I expect to happen is this. They can either do one of two things. They could go back down, try to retest this 220s and 210 mark. 210 is the 52-week low. And that might be the spring again, or what's going to end up happening is, you're going to see at some point buying pressure start coming in when they start getting closer to this date. This is when I think the warrants are unlockable. So what you may see is the final push down, and then you'll see kind of like a pretty sizable move up from there, because they don't want to give you time to basically accumulate down at the low levels, right? So what will end up happening probably is they'll push the stock price up pretty aggressively on 1 or 2 days, then bleed off a little bit, and then they do it again until they get back up here closer to it. Remember, the warrants are up here. This is the warrant line. Let's make that a different color. That's a fib line too. But let me add my own line here. Okay. Edit properties. We're going to do a price level line though. And then let's make ours really fat. And we'll do a weird color. Something that's going to really stand out. Let's see. Maybe a bright green or something. Okay. So that's our warrant line, right? Our stock price is way down here, right? So it's a full dollar difference right now, roughly. Yep. It's full dollar difference. So the question is, what are they going to do, right? So this was what, the 246 line right here, right? And that one had been acting as kind of like a support. It's fallen through. It came up and it tried to touch it right there. Didn't happen today. So where we get the further downside, and then we'll see the push up into for the spring test coming into February. That's very possible. But yeah, I was going to say what I seen, and let's go in the past, right? So the last time we had a massive amount of just downward pressure, right? Let me zoom out a little bit so we can have a better look. All right. This stretch right here was pretty rough, if you guys remember. So you had earnings, and then you would have this massive bleed. That was 1, 2, 3, 4. That was like, almost 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then we pushed up 11. So this was a pretty rough run right here, if I remember correctly, because it was just slow bleeding like every day. Hit the spring down here, right, at 210. Yeah, so this is what we thought was the original spring test, this 246 number. And then we ran up here, and then the Ukraine war happened, and it just ran all the way down. And then this is where it actually hit the spring. So from here at the spring of 210, we ran all the way to $7, right? And it actually touched the Fibonacci level and then went down from there. Right, so since then, it's just been bleeding, right? But this has been a massive, just like, remember, earnings were here, and the earnings were, like, not great, but they weren't, like, awful. And the earnings call actually was decent. So the question is, right, so you had some buying here, right? And then you've had this massive just push down. And this wasn't, like, in line with the stock market. The stock market during some of these days was up. It's just been the last couple that have been really pushed down. So is there a lot of people interested in SPY? Yeah, I think there's a fair amount of people, because you have to remember the SPY and some of these like larger like indexes, they matter for the individual stocks that you're looking at, whether they're small caps or large caps. They do matter because the overall market has basically algos that go with it. And so on days where companies are buying, pretty much everything in the market goes up, depending on the sector. So it does matter sometimes. Missing and likes are the two different things. You missed his stream. What's going on with the likes? Oh, that's fine. There's 28 people watching and we have 14 likes. That's fine. Yeah, like normally you had like 40 something, but it's been a while since I've streamed, so like I expected the numbers to be down because I didn't really, say I was coming back. So yeah, but I was going to say the overall markets do matter. So like what you'll see for a lot of these stocks like Aterian, right, they'll kind of go with the overall market at times. In this case, I think they're going to try to push down to one of these levels, right? So this was a 210 one. This was the last spring test. So they could be going for a new all-time low, or they could be aiming for this spring again and then letting it run back up towards the warrants. And then if they're going to do it, they're going to probably push aggressively, because the key for them is to get people back on track as far as like, oh, well, yeah, Aterian, getting excited about it, watching the stock move up, move up, move up. Because if they move it up to here and people start unloading their shares, say they've lowered their average now after being down here for a while, they need to unlock their warrants, which means they have to get the stock price above this line. So if you're going to do that and you're going to dilute, though, you can't start diluting as soon as you hit 320, because basically what ends up happening is as soon as you start diluting, it'll fall back below this. And you can't sit here and just like teeter this entire time. It's really inefficient because it would take you forever to get your warrants out. At that point, once you're getting them out, you're not making profit on them, right? You're just sitting there with an average exactly or lower than what you're at. So what I think they're going to do is similar to what they did back here, which is they'll probably try to push it up pretty aggressively on a couple days. So you'll see massive volume, right? and then you'll see a lot of like covering during this time because they're just going to take the profit down at these levels, right? Once they start covering a little bit, they'll end up actually, pushing the stock price up, and then they'll reshort it probably if they, that's what they're looking for. So I was not looking at, yeah, that's a nice little run there. I mean, you went straight from basically like, what was that on the RSI? Like, about 12 all the way up to, no, that's not right. That should be 30. This is a percentage. Why is it showing percentage? That's weird. Huh. I don't know why this RSI is showing in percentage. That's weird. Try that. No. Whatever I did, that was not right. All right, let me try to go back. All right, what did I put it as? Wilders, I think. Oh, I just moved it, maybe. Anyway, it should just be, I don't know what's showing percentage, but yeah, it moved massively in like a day. So you went from almost like oversold to like overbought in a day. Let's take a look. Let's see if there's any like warts or anything on it. It was AVCT, right? Oh, I do remember. Some people were talking about this on the... Yeah, they've got warrants, if I remember. They've got warrants at 11 and also warrants at $1. 16 million at $1, full ratchet. So that's an interesting thing. Yeah, they've got a ton of warrants they're probably trying to unlock. So if they're trying to unlock these warrants here, all these warrants here, what they need to do is they need to push up the price massively because they're going to be diluting the crap out of it. So they also have some convertible notes, convertible at 99 cents. So there's a fair amount of dilution on this stock, right? So what they're probably doing is my guess would be they would be sitting here and they are, if you look, they're going to push this up to raise money. So they pushed it from what, like 14, is that 14 cents to like 37? Yeah, and they'll probably try to get up to $1. So, I mean, there's still a little bit more it could run. I don't know if they'll run tomorrow or the next day, but I can tell you right now they're going to be aiming for $1 and above it just to get the warrants out of the way, and then they'll start diluting it. So there's a good amount of dilution on this one. So if you're going to play it, you just make sure you're in and out, and you're not, obviously not financial advice, but like, just be careful what you're doing because in this case, there's a fair amount of dilution coming. So, their shares outstanding are going to go up to like 200 and, I don't know, like 230, 240 million. So, there you go. Yeah, so just be aware of that. Okay? Play it safe. I'm curious if their update will be related to Ryan Cohen selling off his position. Ryan Cohen was involved in this one? Or are you talking about BBBY? Yeah, so there's supposed to be an announcement on Wednesday, I believe, on BBBY. And my guess would be it's going to have to do with probably the state of company, and if everyone's theories are correct, it's basically, because I told you guys the other week, I was thinking about why does Ryan Cohen why did he sell? Like, it's not really his, MO. It's not his normal mode of operation to, get involved on a board, to try to put suggestions out for things to change, and then for him to just be like, nah, I'm just going to sell the whole thing. Like, that's not really how he operates. So that made me think, okay, then what else is there? Like, what are we missing? I don't think Cohen takes over Baby, but I think Bed Bath & Beyond has something that Cohen wants. Cohen likes Bye Bye Baby, right? Yeah. Sorry, you're right, Random. That's what you were saying. Yeah, he likes Bye Bye Baby, and that's a brand that he has a lot of admiration for, and I think. I don't know if it's going to be through GameStop or if it's going to be through his other conglomerates that he's part of. Obviously, like a Billionaires Club, they put their money together and invest in things. So, yeah, I would be very interested in seeing where that goes and what they're going to do with that. But yeah, if they do sell Bye Bye Baby and they do some sort of multiple, basically what they would do is they might take sales or revenue and they give a multiplier of between 3 and 5, and then you would get that in cash, which would probably clear out a fair amount of the debt. Because right now the biggest issues that if you start looking at Bye Bye Babies, here, not Bye Bye Baby, but Bed Bath & Beyond's. What's up, Jonathan? How are you, bud? All right. Let's go here to filings. If you take a look at their financials, right, they have a lot of debt. And it's not like good, healthy debt. It's like bad debt, right? It's not great, right? So you have more liabilities than you have assets. Not a recipe for success, right? Unless you can take that debt and somehow leverage it into, but the problem is they're just basically drowning. So what they would do in this situation would be sell off the Bye Bye Baby, and basically if they got a multiplier of 5, they could clear out almost all of their debt, or at least the debt that makes sense, right? Some of the expensive debt that's costing them over time, the toxic debt, they could clear that out, and that would be the smart thing to do from a business standpoint. So I don't know if they would get that much for it, but Bye Bye Baby is a decent brand. I know when we had kids, we bought a bunch of stuff from them too. So yeah, and I think if we did this right, I see it right there. Yeah, so we sell an assortment of merchandise. Bye Bye Baby. All right. Remember, people are always having babies. It's one thing that doesn't go out of that's not a trend. People are always going to have babies, and they spend lots of money on their babies. I know this because I had 2 recently, and they're pretty expensive. So. And that's not something people skimp on. So once their debt gets handled, the restructuring with Cohen would help. They could potentially get back on track. Now Cohen, obviously, I don't think he could be sitting on their board, but he's left three of his people on that board, and he could always go back in as an investor, just not as an insider. So that would be super interesting to see what happens, but. Yeah, once again, this is just speculation on what would make sense for Bye Bye Baby. But if that happened, obviously, the share price would be worth more, right? So if you had if we were sitting here with, let's just say, Bye Bye Baby right now, their balance sheet is worth. We'd have to see what they're I don't know how much of the cash comes out, how much of the inventory comes out, how much of their long-term investments and securities comes out, right? Or their, some of the stuff's going to be inside of that, storefront. So, but I would imagine there's a good amount of once this is cleared out, like say you still have like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 billion in assets, but you have no debt, that's pretty decent. Yeah. Share price would be around 50 for, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, like you're looking at a pretty sizable increase from, if you think about it, the stock right now is trading at 13 a share. Even if it was run to 30 to 35, that's a massive gain for most people. So, wasn't that the same one we did before, the Avia? Is that the one we did earlier? I just want to make sure that was the one that we covered earlier. No, was this something different? This one might have been different. Oh, this is the one Dirty wanted to look at, right? I think Dirty wanted me to look at this one. All right. I'm pulling it up. Yeah, I think Dirty presented this to me, told me to read the DD, and I started to this afternoon. I didn't finish it, but I did take a look at something, so let me just do the work now. I got a little bit of time. We can just do the work now. Okay, so let me just do this real quick. I realize that... All right. That's all saved. All right. Someday I'll figure out a way of combining my Twitter and all these things, so I won't just put it at once and I don't have to keep doing this. But for right now, let's just continue on. Let's go through and... Was this... Yeah, right. Was it AY... Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's a good thing. Dilution may not matter for this one. Let's take a look. All right. So they've been beaten down. What we got here? Is this one of those bogus lawsuits, or is it a real one? Let's see. Okay. On June 27th, I announced the $6 million aggregate financing commitments, including $350 in senior secured loans. Blah 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 blah. Okay, the company's management claimed this funding supports and accelerates our business model of transformation. Then on the 28th, they announced the termination of their CEO. They announced their preliminary... On this news, it fell to $1.19 a share, then 90 cents. It would not timely. All right, so they're not. Basically, what they're saying is these angry shareholders are saying that, you know, the company's management mismanaged how they did things, and they're trying to recoup some of their losses. This is what happens all the time. Like, most of these cases never actually do anything. All right, so they want to... The audit committee also commenced an investigation into the mess raised by... some whistleblower inside the company basically is saying they did something shady. My guess is if the stock price goes up, that these people won't care anymore. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. These were all the same. They're just different law firms all saying the same thing. So all the angry people. Blah, 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 blah. All right, so they're gonna have a late 10Q filing. And they let the New York Stock Exchange. I know. What's up, Dirty? I'm covering your ticker. Just taking a look. Like most of these lawsuits are probably bogus, or not bogus, but like they're never gonna win because they have to basically prove, unless that whistleblower is willing to come and testify. There's probably not a whole lot that's gonna happen with any of these lawsuits. All right. So who is this guy? So he's the new CEO. All right. So what do we know about this guy? All right. So this is all like leadership stuff and like kind of a big mess. It looks like, as far as like there's a lot of unhappy investors. There's a lot of like internal management stuff that's going on here. On the surface, though, what I see is there's a decent amount of institutional ownership, which is a good thing. We'll have to see how those numbers hold up on the next 13F, but overall, there's not a ton of dilution that I'm seeing. So obviously, this is the late quarterly filing. So that's not we don't know why they're doing it, but let's take a look at the balance sheet before this. Okay. So gross profits down. I don't like how they did that, but that's fine. Here, we'll take a look at this part. Their assets. Just okay. They still have a good amount of cash. All right, they still have a good amount of accounts receivable. Accounts receivable actually went up, so that's a good thing. Their contracts and net assets have gone up, also good. The cost of the contracts has gone down, and other current assets still good. Everything else looks pretty much the same for total current assets, so let's just call it. That's fine. Their liabilities have gone up, or sorry, their accounts payable has gone up, but they're able to basically, it looks like, lower slightly their total current liabilities. So yeah, I mean, looks like they've got 85.6 million shares issued and outstanding, and then they have an additional as of March. All right, so I'd like to see their balance sheet, because obviously their balance sheet that's been delayed would be very telling of what's going on with this. Yeah, so I mean, like, it's not like It's definitely not a blue chip, but at the same time, could it be a growth story? Yeah, like it's possible. Um, do we know anything with insiders? Let's see. Sorry. Yeah. All right, let me just take a look. They had a sell signal on it in August 26th, which was just a couple days ago. So Ortex put out a sell on it. Utilization's 100. Looks like short interest has been rising. Oh yeah, I was gonna say I was looking at the previous one. I was looking at the last 10Q. The new 10Q has been delayed, so, or at least maybe you're using Fintel. I can go to Fintel and see if there's anything different. But I was just looking at their last 10Q. Short interest about 16.88 million, about almost 30% of the float, and then the cost to borrow is pretty low still, but that's fine. I don't think it's filled this gap yet, did it? Let's take a look. Has it filled this gap here? All right, so it didn't fill this gap yet. I think I remember you were looking at it a couple days ago, and I told you that I would be interested in this because the gap that it left a pretty sizable gap here, and another one here. It filled this gap right here, but it's not filled this upper gap right here. So yeah, I mean it looked pretty decent. Yeah, I mean, so I would be pretty safe to say like $2 would be an immediate price target. I don't know if you'll get it right away, but yeah, I would think that gap's going to fill at some point pretty soon. So, you know, and overall, it doesn't look like the craziest thing. Now, if the stock market tanks, could you see another run down before it hits up here and there's more accumulation that can occur? Sure. I mean, that can happen too. So, it's really going to depend on what the overall market wants to do now. Gamma this week might have to do with the filing. Yeah, I mean, take a look at the. Is there a good amount of. Yeah, there's a good amount of open interest, even down here. So, right. So they've the 50 cents and the dollars. There's a good amount of open interest down there. Good amount of puts too. But yeah, I mean, this thing looks like it could. If it gets pushed up, then yeah, it's definitely going to be a possibility for some, this to run up maybe next week after these. No, you know what? These are for the 16th. These aren't for this week. Yeah, they only have monthlies on these. So I could imagine this thing. My guess would be these $8 ones are probably being used as an IV. Like, they're just going to play it for the, if the IV spikes, they'll get out. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. If the options keep growing like they are, this thing could run. That's what I tell you. And I think that price target's going to be right around 2. So there you go. That's this dummy's opinion on it. All right. So we don't have a ton of people in here. Is there anything that you guys want to cover tonight, or I can kind of prepare some things in the future if you want? Apparently, oh yeah, if anyone's getting any DMs from me, that's not me. That's some sort of bot. I've been getting some people on the server telling me that people are impersonating me again. This is not my ID number, so if you see that, please don't give them any of your information. Report spam. I'm just cleaning up my inbox. Sorry, there's a bunch of people writing. There's Dirty's comments. All right. WEBR. Yeah, we can cover WEBR real quick. All right, so WEBR's been having a fun little run after they got beat around for a while. I mean, they had this long period where they were just getting absolutely crapped on. And so the last couple weeks, right, so they were just getting just beat down. And this, to me, this gap here was able to fill here before the, earnings. Because I bought WEBR, I think, back here when it had kind of been consolidating in the 7s and 8s. Ran up a little bit, and then it got pushed back down, gapped down pretty large, and then it's just been kind of like chopping around here in the 6s, and then it's finally been more consolidating in the 7s and 8s, and now we've kind of made this step into the 10s again. My guess is they had a decent amount of short interest, and they've had to cover some of it. Yeah, so today was 5% for WEBR. In a down market, that's not bad. WEBR obviously is an interesting one because they are a larger company. They do have some cash problems, but they don't have any dilution right now. So it's not like if they register something, then we should be worried. But at this point right now, they haven't registered anything that I saw. But their cash was not great, if I remember correctly. Yeah, here. So here is it's taking forever. All right, let's try it. Come on. My computer's being slow. Someday I'll get a new computer. All right. Come on. There we go. Okay. All right. So I just want to point this out, right? So there was a pretty significant lowering of the cash, right? So they only had 40 million, let's call it 41 million, right? And they had been, I think I remember correctly, their cash burn was pretty significant. They were burning I don't know, 60, 80 million a quarter. So I'm not sure what shape they're in as far as now if they've converted some of this accounts receivable over, that would be great, right? Maybe a good amount of that it's been transferred over, and now they're okay as far as cash goes. But that was a slight you're getting pretty close to this, and maybe they used some of their revolving debt, because it does look like some of their long-term financing has grown, so they may be using that as their cash to supplement right now. So, but overall, it's their sales have gone down, and that's, I think, what most shorts we're seeing, right? But yeah, they do have a very high short interest on WEBR, and it's because of, obviously, like, it's over 30% according to this. I can go to Ortex as well if you want to see that. Here we go. So they gave it a buy on the 24th of June, and then since then, utilization's 100%. Cost of borrow is around 45, roughly. And it looks like the short interest has just been kind of hanging out here in the 9 mil. So it's just been hanging out there. But not a ton of shares right now. It looks like they borrowed pretty much all of them. They're always going to find stuff, but these guys could have a nice run back into the 12 to 15 range, is my guess, for the immediate. This one right here is going to be the key, is if they can get over 12. Because they basically came up pretty high and then got rejected, and then they're coming back up again. And this particular one here is going to be a very interesting level to see what happens once they get over this, basically, like $11, $12 mark, because that's a strong resistance. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, I like WEBR long. I think, I've got some shares of theirs. So I've got shares, and I think I have a handful of calls. I sold most of the calls, though, last week when it popped up. So wasn't the top, but at the same time, I was profitable, so I took some profits on it, and then I held on to like four contracts, and that was it. So, I'm really waiting on DTC, and that's and obviously Aterian as well, because those ones are ones that, I think at some point we're going to see some positive things on those particular ones. I can tell you this is pretty highly unusual to do what they're doing here, which is they're going to go back down and go for, I don't know how many times this thing's going to bottom. I mean, if you look at this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like they get down to this level and then they get just bought back up. And then this seems like, to me, this is a really long, because this thing's been a falling knife, right? So it started up here. You have a good amount of accumulation. If we're looking at Wyckoff from right, so you go down here, you make your first attempt up, you get pushed back down, and then what we should see is another run coming, and it'll be the larger run, I think. So, but yeah, so the other one was APRN that you guys wanted to look at, and then all right, so APRN, right? You had that massive run over here, right? Did that close that gap? Yeah, I think it did. Okay, so that's fine there. Now it looks like you're basically coming to, if you were to draw out some lines, I would think at some point you're going to come to a head somewhere down here in September, and it's either going to break up or down out of that wedge. It's kind of basically just, it looks like it's trying to consolidate here in the like 570 to 580 range. Like that's their sweet spot right now for APRN. Chipotle is a good stock to have. I mean, people like Chipotle, and overall, like, they've been pretty solid. So it's a pretty safe one. Now, if we go into a recession, then, they will take a hit too. So, it all depends on what your valuation of them is. But for these guys, right? So take a look at the short interest, about 40%, right? Or 4 million shares. This doesn't have a huge float. I think we've talked about that before. Right now, this is obviously a massive jump, right? Is that right? No. The percentage of the free float went up, but the actual shorted shares went down. Did they do a share buyback on this one? Is that why? Let's take a look. Sorry. Put my kid, it was her first day of kindergarten today, so we got up early and we're taking pictures and doing all that stuff, so probably head out in a little bit and get some sleep because we're going to do it again tomorrow. Get used to this new schedule. Yeah, so shares outstanding 34.8, and the free float right now is 10.38. An insider bought APRN. Okay, that's why the free float changed. So, was it like, oh, that's right, there was some massive guy that bought in like a huge order of, yeah, okay. So that's why it's moved up such, so aggressively as far as like the free float. Okay. I do remember that. Yeah, so I mean, this is another one. I think what you'll see here is you'll consolidate in this range for a while, and then you'll have a breakout, or up or down. The shorts right now look like they're just kind of holding on, but you guys have to remember, like, look at these positions, right? The estimated value of this thing is like 22 million. That's not that much. So to shorts, it seems like, yeah, these numbers look like really good. It looks totally squeezable, but it all depends on who's on the other side. If the people shorting it have billions of dollars, they're not worried about a $22 million short against a small cap company, right? If they lose, they have to cover. They might lose, a bit, but like that's not that bad as far as like, if you compare that to, for example, like, I don't know, AMC, you look at the short interest here, that's what, like $1 billion, right? Right now is like shorted against AMC. If you go to GME, it's $1.6 billion shorted against GME. So like, you just have to put in perspective. So like when people are like, oh, well, they're in BBB, or was it BBIG, right? And they're like, oh, the shorts are screwed. Like they're, if you look at the short position and it's like 33 million, like nobody's screwed. That's a huge hedge fund. Like that's chump change to them. Same with Aterian, the same way. Like, yeah, at some point they may go, yeah, this is not the best thing, but like they've 17 million shorted against them. That's why they don't mind holding these long-term positions against these companies, is because it doesn't cost them that much money. If you're paying 30% cost to borrow on $17 million short, it's not that much. Exactly. So like that's why these small cap ones are not the same like behemoths, and they're not going to call it. Now, if somebody's short GameStop and also is short, Aterian or BBIG or some of these other small caps like APRN, like, yeah, they could all be going up too. Yeah, we can put up Ape if you want. Ape's in the same boat, right? So Ape is the spinoff, right? So you look at this thing and they have no short data against this at this point right now. But the short interest value right now, they're saying, is about 862.8 billion or million. It's obviously very high. Yeah, I mean, they're obviously using those shares. I've not really been following Ape though, to be honest with you. No, I got some shares of it, and I kind of was trying to look into some of the like. I think if anything's going to happen, it's got to be pretty soon, because this is what I don't want to see. If they issue out more shares on Ape, it's going to kill any sort of squeeze, right? So like, it all depends on Adam Aaron and what he's doing with this thing. If they start just issuing out more shares, it's going to kill, like, now granted, it can make AMC whole as far as like they can pay off massive amounts of debt with it, but like the squeeze aspect of it would not be there. So, and I'm not trying to make anyone upset. It's just it at that point you're basically sacrificing the squeeze for having a viable company again, because they would take that cash and pay off debt. Like, they have billions of dollars of debt with AMC that they need to pay off. They would use that money to pay that off, and then at that point, when the movies are going strong and they're bringing in tons of money, then you don't have as much debt, that's a good thing. Like, you actually have a viable company again. So you would be exchanging one for the other. It's not like a death sentence. I'm just, it just takes MOAS off. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But at the same time, that I think that's been the goal for a lot of these, meme stock things, is like, these CEOs are not worried about you guys getting MOAS. If it happens, great, but like, for them, they're just trying to make sure that they run a successful company. If they hate, that's what they're going to try to do. Like, Adam Aaron showed that he did not care about like giving apes MOAS, even though he could have let it run up, and because AMC was going to squeeze higher, the first round before they issued all those the ATM out. Like, he literally issued that ATM right to like kill the squeeze. And he's got ties to, to all the major firms on Wall Street. So for me, I don't trust the guy as far as that goes. He's going to do what he thinks is best for the company, which may not be what's best for, his investors, as far as like the people who saved their company. Yeah. So, once again, it all depends on how you look at it. If you're willing to grin and bear it, and see if AMC can turn around long term, then that's what you're looking for, is to be able to clear up some of that debt. So. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much difference it's going to be, as far as like, you can only sell so much popcorn before it just boils down to people are coming out to the movies, or they're not. If there's another variant flare up, hopefully there's not, and this was the worst of it, but there's all sorts of things that can happen. So. I'm getting tired, but yeah. Was there anything else? I think I pretty much covered most of them. Yeah, Tilray's the weed stock, right? Basically, I'll tell you this: as far as Tilray and most of these marijuana stocks, until the United States actually legalizes, they're basically going to be just chopping around this range, because there's a decent amount of dilution that already happened on most of these, if I remember correctly, because they were more anticipating Tilray. All right. Yeah, so here you go. So here's Tilray, right? They don't have a ton of institutional ownership, so there's not, basically all their stuff that's out there is owned by retail. Here was their year end. Yeah, just reading through. We could be hit by a massive asteroid tomorrow. Yep, yep. I think it might be the other. I think it was Aurora Cannabis was the one that had larger dilution, if I remember correctly. You know what I can do for this one? I know one of you asked about this, so let me do this. Let me pull up real quick something that. Hold on a second. We need. This Morningstar. So I'll pull up the Morningstar for you guys. All right. And Tilray. Okay. Yeah, here we go. All right. So they basically have the fair value at like 15. Anything under 750 is good. So if you're long on this, you just have to be super patient because, yeah, you could see this thing go back into the teens again, but it's going to, in this like short amount of time at least, kind of probably be down here for a while until they actually either legalize in the United States or there's some sort of breakthrough as far as they go. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, sorry. It was just one of those long, long day today. Had a lot going on at work, and now everything's freezing. Okay, this is a good time to jump off. All right. Well, you guys have a wonderful evening, and I will see you tomorrow. I'll try to be on the Discord more tomorrow. It just depends. I think in the morning I have to go out to a job site, and then I'll be back in the afternoon. So hopefully I'll be able to do it there. All right. You guys have a great evening, and I will see you tomorrow.